I want to congratulate y'all for getting here so early in the morning today. Mysterious. I woke up at 5:15 in the morning, or what I thought was 5:15. It's awfully dark out there, and I look at the phone and it says 6:15. I go, oh, interesting. I woke up. Anyway, so welcome to spring. I am back from Oregon, where I spent some days with my family up there. It was a great time. And in the course of that visit, my nephew asked me to go on a hike with him. And I was blown away. My nephew is 41 years old, and he's a very quiet fellow. Very, very, very quiet fellow. And he's delightfully sweet, kind, and good in every possible way. He's a wonderful man. And he's a very quiet person. He's single. He's never dated anyone. He's lives a very quiet life. Goes to his work at Target, stocking shelves, and goes home and plays video games and cooks good food. And he's a great guy, but a very quiet guy. But this day, he wanted to take a hike with me, and I go, okay. So, and I am not known in the family as being a particularly quiet person. Some members of the family wish that I was quieter, actually. Anyway, and I always assumed that that was the case for my nephew. But anyway, my nephew asked me to go on this hike, and so we took a walk down Fano Creek in Beaverton, Oregon, by Portland. And he started to talk, and talk, and talk. And he talked for an hour and a half straight while we're walking. And I got more words out of that guy in an hour and a half than I had gotten out of that guy in 41 years. Total. Blew my mind. What happened to my nephew? Well, what happened is my nephew fell in love. He got stuck on some gal that he worked with at the Target store, and he was smitten with this girl, and she was a completely and totally inappropriate person for him to get smitten by, as I discovered listening to him walking along. But something happened to my dear nephew. This attraction blew him open. It blew him open. It made him aware of what he wanted, and to fully want what he wanted, and to begin to think about possibly asking for what he wanted, which was a relationship. Maybe not with this totally inappropriate woman. I could give you the list of why it was completely inappropriate, and I think you'd agree with me. Anyway, but this attraction blew him open. And he's starting to ask for what he wants and needs. So he's going to therapy. And he let me know that his algorithm is now self-help videos on YouTube. I mean, his algorithm before was like World of Warcraft and so on, video games, right? New algorithm for his smartphone and his computer, new algorithm for his life, because he's starting to ask for what he wants. Wow, what a moment. We might ask, as we think about Lent, what's Lent all about? We have this idea in our head that Lent is when you give up stuff, right? Meat, whatever, eat nothing but fish on Fridays, ... Giving things up, fasting, right, is the focus. Not a wonderful coincidence this year, Lent is at the same time as Ramadan. So Eid Mubarak is coming up here. Eid, the end of Ramadan. Same idea, right? It's Lent for Muslims when they fast during the day and then feast at night. Fast and feast. That's what Lent is all about for Muslims. Ramadan is all about for Muslims. But here's a question. What did Jesus do for Lent? What did Jesus do for Lent in the period running up to his return to Jerusalem and the crucifixion, etc.? In that run of time, what was he doing? And I got into my Bible again, and I kind of asked that question, and what I discovered is what Jesus did is he was asking for things. He spent Lent asking for what he wanted. And this is a guy who was pretty bold about asking for what he wanted, like really bold. In Lent, in the Bible, the Lent of the Bible, the New Testament, you will find that the story of Zacchaeus is in there. So Jesus is speaking to people, and he sees this man up in a tree listening to him, and he's in the back because nobody can stand him because he's a tax collector, right? Everybody hates him. He's shunned by everyone. But he's up in a tree so he can hear Jesus and see Jesus talk. And he says, Zacchaeus, I want to come to your house for dinner tonight. Now that's bold. When was the last time you asked somebody to go to dinner at their house? It might seem, slightly socially inappropriate. Yeah. Jesus didn't seem to have any qualms about this. I would like to go to dinner at your house. Have you feed me dinner? And Zacchaeus says, yes, let's do it. Jesus was asking as he came into Jerusalem, he says, I need a donkey, to get into Jerusalem. So he tells his disciples, please go do this and this so you can get me this donkey so I can come into town. Then he's going to set up a Passover meal. So he asks for what he wants. He says to his disciples, there's a guy with a jug of water on his head. You go talk to this guy, you ask him, he'll take you to a place, and that's where we're going to have our Passover meal. Jesus just went around asking people for things. I mean, the greatest example of all is when he rounded up his disciples. How outrageous was that? He just goes up to these guys by the seashore and he says, follow me. I want you to follow me. And they did, which is even weirder when you think about it, right? Here's this guy, goes up to what seem to be perfect strangers, asks them to be his disciples. They have no credentials or anything, but he just decides, these are my guys, and he asks them to follow him, and they do, right? Funny how it works. When you ask for things, at least sometimes you get them. Not always, but sometimes you do. And another thing happens while you ask for things, and that is that you make connections. Jesus was a guy that asked for what he wanted, and in the course of doing that, developed relationships with people all over Israel. Jesus had the country wired because he asked for what he wanted, even if it was outrageous sometimes. Yeah? Now, there's lessons in this for us. One is, be bold, ask for what you want. But there's another corollary to that and that is that we need to refine and be clear about what it is that we want and what we don't want. And we need to spiritually practice attentiveness within about what is good for us to be asking for and what isn't, right? What should we, what of our desires are healthy for us and for other people, right? What of our desires and wishes, which of them are appropriate, which of them serve the world and serve ourselves really. So discerning what's worthy of asking for, that's part of Lent too. And letting go of desires for things that really aren't going to do us any good and that are in the way of our relationships with other people, that's part of Lent too. So we take Lent as a time to go deep within, release urges and desires that we have that are not working for us, and lift up the ones that are working for us and go for it with them. Ask for them. When I was working with unhoused people at the Urban Ministry Drop-In Center in Palo Alto years ago, one day a fellow showed up wearing very nice clothes, well-dressed, put-together fellow, and he kind of takes me aside and tells me a story. He says, "Well, Jim, it's great to meet you. Love what you do here. This is awesome. Just letting you know, I have a problem, and I'd like your help with this problem if you possibly could. I'm sure you'll understand. My marriage just fell apart, and I have run out of money to pay my $1,500 mortgage on my house in Marin County." Now, this was about 30 years ago when a $1,500 mortgage was a lot of money, right? Those were the good old days, huh? Wow, $1,500. Doesn't that sound good for rent? My Peruvian undocumented friend would be real happy about that. So he says, "Really, Jim," he says, "I understand what you do here for the homeless. I get it, bus passes, leftover food, coffee from Pete's that's donated. I get it. But I have a special need. I'm kind of in a different category here, And I know that surely because of your connections with all these wealthy churches here in town, probably you can help me out with this problem that I have of my $1,500 mortgage." And he was talking to me as if I was some long-lost colleague of his. He was very glib and charming and smooth. And I'm just sitting there going, wow. I kind of waved my arm out. I go, $1,500. I go, that's a lot of bus passes for homeless people, We don't go through $1,500 in bus passes a month for the folks that we've got here. I go, look about you. It's like, welcome to the Urban Ministry Drop-In Center. You, sir, can have all of the leftover muffins from Starbucks that you want here. You can drink our coffee for all time, and we'll give you a bus pass when we have enough of them, anytime. Wish I could help with your problem. Anyway, that was the last we saw of him. But as he walked away, I just thought to myself, well, I got to hand it to the guy. That was bold, And, it didn't hurt. Just no skin off my nose. It's like he asked, and I said no, but he asked. And you got to admire that. Now, there are contexts in which a person like that could ask for $1,500 for the mortgage, and maybe somebody would nod and smile and say yes, that's possible. He just probably chose the wrong place to ask that question, yeah, but it didn't hurt. It was not any skin off anybody's nose. Ask, and ye shall receive, said Jesus. Knock, and the door shall be opened, right? Someday, somehow, in some way, it will be open. You might not get $1,500 for your mortgage on your house in Mill Valley, but something else might happen that would be good because you asked. So this was Jesus. He spent Lent asking for things. And we should do the same. but we should be, of course, attentive, spiritually attentive to whether what we're asking for is appropriate, is healthy for us and others, and that the people we're asking for what we want are people that can receive this request with some comfort. And another aspect of this is that the practice for Lent is to cultivate within ourselves the ability to say no clearly. When people ask for stuff that we can't give them or that's inappropriate for us to give them, we need to cultivate a deep practice of how to say no. Not no in a mean way, not no in a way that shuts off a relationship, but just a good, clean, clear, crisp, polite no. Yeah? That's part of the practice as well. So, Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount, he said, ask. Ask for what you need. Clearly, the man wasn't greedy. Clearly, the way that he asked for what he wanted resulted in building relationships with people and among people instead of breaking them down or shattering them. That's what happens when you ask appropriately in the appropriate context, but are bold to ask. You become, in asking for what you want, you become a kind of a community organizer. Yeah? It's sort of like the stone soup story, right? You start asking, it's like, okay, you've got stones, thank you very much, but do you have a carrot? And do you have a bell pepper? And do you have a potato? And then the next thing you know, you've got a community of people eating soup. And yeah, there's stones at the bottom of the pot, but the stuff above it is great, right? So by asking, by networking in your asking, and asking appropriately and lovingly, we build community. I'd like to think that that's a practice we do here, a Lenten practice we do here all the time, to ask. And if it's a no, a nice, clean, clear, crisp, kind no. But maybe it's a no that says, actually, maybe you should ask so-and-so over there because it might be appropriate for them to help you out in the way you're asking. And the next thing you know, you've built community. I pray that my nephew, who has begun his journey, his Lenten journey, into asking for what he wants, my prayer is that he will keep asking and get better at asking and better at asking, knocking on doors and finally getting what he needs and richly deserves. That's my prayer, and my prayer for you as well. Amen. And now let us commune with each other. And as you come forward to receive the bread and the wine in the white cup, the grape juice in the dark cup, meditate upon what it is that you want. What are your desires in this time of Lent? What do you want? And is it appropriate to want? And if it is, how can you begin to ask for it? Let us feast on the bread and the wine of communion and fast from all that gets in the way of communing deeply with each other. The bread broken by the Christ, saying, "This is my body. Take and eat." And the cup, "This is my life poured out for you. Take and drink. And by doing so, enter the kingdom. Come, share in the feast.
Did someone leave their phone?